Where's that curtain?
It came today.
Okay.
Yeah.
I still hear that. Echo.
Good morning, Liberty.
Yep.
No, you first. You're an idiot.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. Across from me is Mr. Charles Chuck Thompson, who I learned yesterday I cannot ask how it's going because you got upset about it yesterday. And so I just want to say I don't care how your life is, Charlie. Let's do the show.
I wouldn't say upset. It's just, you ask me that every day. And
instead of asking, I'm just going to give you a statement of fact. Charlie, we are, in fact, just outside of Nashville, Tennessee, and today is Thursday.
Yes.
All right, let's do the show. Here we go.
Welcome to Good Morning Liberty, a place where we talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of meaning every single day of the week when we want to. Coming from the new studio, we took about 2 weeks off. Nate, with his bare hands, built a brand new studio. Still in the works. We still got some things to figure out, but for the most part, it's workable and it's going to keep getting better. And
it's a studio. There are 3 cameras here. Yep. There are about 100 light bulbs, and it's pretty. Oh, I forgot. I left the overhead lights on today, which seems like it's looking fine now. Maybe that's helping. Actually, I don't know. Yeah. Anyhow, we just spent like the first 30 minutes of the hour talking to the Fed Haters Club off the air, which you could have been involved in if you would have gone to joingml.com and paid as little as $7 a month just yesterday. In fact, earlier today, if you would have done that, you would have heard all about everything and much about nothing. I told you that I'm about to die, and we got now you're not going to know, but the people in the Fed Haters Club know. And we talked about Charlie's workout routine that he's going to get started here in a few months or so. And
next year.
Yeah, next year. Workout routine starts next. It's too late in the year to start working out now.
That's a 2026 resolution, all right?
Yeah. You want to get that resolution going quick. Yeah, let's take a vote here from Fat Mac. Who's going to die first, Chuck or Nate? We need to, here, I'll put out the options there and you guys vote. Okay, so we've got a few things here in the stack. I want
to say the other thing they missed real quick is that the Fed Haters Club was, they're really cheering us on to just do a hangout show and skip the actual recording. Now, we care about the people who listen later too, so we're still going to do an episode, but there may be a day or several where we just decide to go live with the group, and if you're not in the Fed Haters Club, you'll miss out.
You know, a couple weeks ago we did an impromptu Q&A or AMA or whatever the kids are calling it these days, and that was pretty fun too. And so the people in the live group were asking us questions, and we did our best to answer some of them, so we should do that more often as well. But
looks like we're going to die at the same time.
Same time. It's an even vote right now.
It's tied.
Let's get to some of the stuff we have in the stack. This is not the main topic, which I'm not even 100% sure we're going to make it to really today. We'll see. The main topic was going to be a split between the American Academy of Pediatrics and the CDC on whether or not there should be recommended COVID-19 vaccines for 6-month-old babies, 6 month to 2-year-old, or children in general. And for the first time, maybe ever, there's a split between the two. CDC says, no, you don't have to do it. Although they do give you guidance if you want to do it. You know, they're not saying that you can't or anything. And the American Academy of Pediatrics says RFK is a misinformation spewing, vaccine hating kook. And of course, you should be getting this because your kid is going to die of COVID if you don't get one. And so we're going to go through. I don't know if you remember, Charlie, but back in the day, the good old days, during COVID, back in the good old days, we used to dive in heavy into those studies and just go like line by line. Maybe some people thought it was boring.
Until we got shut down.
That's what led to all the YouTube problems.
YouTube
and Facebook. And all of that. But we used to spend a lot of time going through all these studies and presenting as much evidence as we possibly could. And I sort of did that with the information we have at the end of today's show, if we get there. Also, it looks like there's some whistleblowers or some information coming out that the intelligence community also may have helped hide the fact that they knew it was a lab leak, and that they decided they were going to stay quiet and let Fauci and those others write that paper saying that it was likely natural origins. So we've got that in there as well. So that's cool.
There's no way.
Yeah, that's crazy.
How could I possibly believe that?
Doesn't make any sense.
Was there like a piece of paper that 50 intelligence officers didn't sign?
Maybe
that they were
Mm-hmm.
gonna sign, but they're like, we're just gonna leave our names off this one.
Yeah,
because let's just go with
So Rand Paul's out there again saying, see, I've already referred Fauci for prosecution, and this is yet another reason why he needs to be behind bars right now. So we'll talk about that. But first, a little bit of foreign policy stuff. Now, I've heard, I haven't seen an official press release on this. I haven't seen official words from Putin, but it does seem like there's been a little break. I don't know if you remember.
I thought you were going to talk about the war in Venezuela.
I've got that in here too. We've got like 3 shows worth of stuff.
Okay.
On the day that we chose to talk for 30 minutes before, which was fun. I'm glad we did. It was a good time. But yeah, we're not going to make it through the whole thing today. So Trump posted out on Truth Social something that is leading many people to believe there's been a break in the honeymoon period of Trump and Putin. And you remember the Alaska thing, everyone was so happy. Putin got on the red carpet. There were B-2 bombers. Everyone was being all chummy and everything. And we were going to have the end to the war. And then I believe Russia actually hit an American company, factory in Ukraine. So I saw a post about that. Russia's latest attack on Ukraine struck an American factory. Brian Krasenstein said this is what you get when you roll out the red carpet for a murderous dictator like Putin. And then he had a video there of factory fire. So anyhow, you can imagine what that looks like. And today, Donald Trump posted this out. He said, I keep forgetting that there's a screen right. I'm literally like, I can't see that screen.
It's right there.
There's one right here, too. He said, go ahead, Charlie. You read it.
It's very hard. It's not impossible to win a war without attacking an invader's country. It's like a great team in sports. I'm glad he does these analogies for us.
Yeah, we needed a sports reference.
It's like a great team in sports that is a fantastic defense, but is not allowed to play offense. You know what, Trump?
Offensive.
I heard that defense wins games.
Defense wins championships.
That's what
they say.
Actually, I misspoke. Sorry. Defense doesn't just win games. It wins championships. And that's according to Coach K. That guy knew what he was talking about. Anyway.
Is he Russian? Yeah, he's got to be something. He's over there he's from somewhere Serbian crazy, I'll tell you what.
Yeah, Serbian, maybe. I don't know. Anyway.
All right.
There's no chance of winning. It's like that with Ukraine and Russia. Crooked and grossly incompetent Joe Biden would not let Ukraine fight back. Only defend. How did that work out? Regardless, this is a war that would have never happened if I were president. Zero chance. Interesting times ahead. President DJT, which is the same thing as thank you for your attention to this matter.
So what we're seeing here, honestly, I believe is a threat, a negotiation threat from Trump towards Putin at the moment. Now, as people in the group are pointing out, Ukraine has hit Russian territory. They were approved to even use some of our weapons to hit Russian territory, which
javelins.
Well, it's like everyone has to realize we are in a proxy war with Russia right now. Currently, we are just paying people called Ukrainians to fight Russia in a proxy war,
and we're using their kids to die.
Yes,
on the line.
Exactly. Instead of using our own American soldiers, which I know we probably got contractors and stuff over there. We are using Ukrainian kids to fight Russia right now. And you could make the argument that part of the strategy was to just try and bleed Russia of as much money and people. And who cares what happens to Ukraine during the whole time? We don't care about Ukraine anyway. We just want to make Russia spend a bunch of money on this war and kill a bunch of their soldiers and stuff. And we'll just use our proxy to do that. And we got the whole Cold War thing going again. Isn't
and then
that fun?
when they're really weak, then we strike.
Then you finally go after them. But what you're hearing here is Trump essentially making the threat that we are going to allow Ukraine to strike in Russia. Now, they've hit parts of Russia, and I believe they've done a couple little drone attacks on maybe some parts in Moscow, but not done a lot of damage. Now, we've got the ability to give them the weaponry, and they might already have that weaponry to actually do damage inside of Russia if Russia can't shoot down whatever missiles it is that we're going to give them. But that I don't want to see it get to that. Mm-mm. But this does seem like, for whatever reason, Trump has found out that Putin maybe doesn't want to end the war.
Wasn't everybody just nominating Trump for a Nobel?
Everyone yesterday? Was super, pretty happy with what was going on, and the European leaders came over, and it was a fun time. And Putin and Zelensky were going to get together, and it seems like the whole thing that Putin and Zelensky and Trump were going to get together, that was actually never approved or agreed upon by Putin, and it might have been Trump just sort of talking. And sometimes you can do that. Like, you can say, "Oh yeah, we're going to get together," and Putin's cool with it, and then Putin's like, "Okay, well, he said I'm cool with it. I guess I have to do it now," and that could have been the strategy, but maybe it's not working. And of course, yes, as people, we'll just mention, we're not conspiracy theorists on this show, but a conspiracy theorist would say, of course, that's as long as it was actually Russia that struck those pieces of Ukraine, and it wasn't, Ukraine that did that. But anyhow, that's what a conspiracy theorist would say.
Yeah.
If this were a conspiracy theorist podcast. Before we get to Venezuela, we'll also mention the fact that the military is apparently preparing attacks on Mexican cartels. They're at least drawing up the plans for it right now. And the next two things, in my opinion, really go along. That Thomas Massey theory that no matter what, the military-industrial complex will find a way to spend about $50 billion a year on some sort of military activity. And I think right now they're a little worried that we're not going to give Ukraine a whole bunch more money or a whole bunch more weapons, even though Europe is supposed to be buying a bunch of weapons from, but maybe they're worried the war is going to end.
We're not really fighting in the Middle East.
And
right
so
now.
we gotta get another war going, right? It's like chain smoking wars is like what our country does.
This one's almost out.
Use one to light the next.
Light me another.
And so right now what we see is, we're going to send some destroyers off the coast of Venezuela. We're drawing up attack plans for different cartels in Mexico, which means, yes, we're drawing up attack plans for striking parts of Mexico. Doesn't matter like, oh, there's bad people there. Like, that's what we're talking about doing. This is from Ken Klippenstein. He says the Trump administration has directed the military to prepare for lethal strikes against cartel targets inside Mexico. 3 military sources tell us the top secret planning order issued in late spring directs Northern Command, NORTHCOM, to manage the attack plans, which are to be ready by mid-September. Though U.S.-Mexico military relations are broad and cooperative, any military action south of the border is considered extremely sensitive for both Washington and the Mexican federal government and is rarely discussed in public. So we will see on that. I've seen plenty of Republicans talking about how we needed to strike cartels in Mexico.
There's also a war happening in D.C. They're cleaning up the streets.
We haven't talked about that a single time. When it comes,
they're cleaning up them streets, man.
When it comes to that, let me just be 100% honest with you. So when I went to D.C. for the Libertarian Convention last year, I don't remember what year it was.
You're still trying to wash that off. Year.
I had in my mind, I was driving there and, watching movies or whatever. And I was like, I am going to go just real quick. I'm going to leave the convention. I'm going to go see all the cool sites in DC because I really never spent any time in DC before. And I'm not saying this because we're on a podcast and it's, impactful or whatever. When I got close enough to see the city, I got the sickest feeling just from seeing that city that I didn't know existed. Like, we've talked about how much we hate the government and how much God hates feds and how much we hate DC. But when I got close enough to see that place, I felt sick about being there.
You felt?
I was like...
It was like Sodom and Gomorrah.
Yes. And I was like, I've never been in a city
heavy
filled...
on the sodomy part.
I've never been in a city filled with more just blatant murderers and thieves. Like, this is a den of murderers and thieves that I'm driving into right now. And that's how I felt about it.
So you're saying we should nuke DC?
No, that is not what I'm saying.
Oh,
at all.
okay.
I
just
did not
like
say
a
that.
big bomb.
No.
Oh,
No, but I don't want any bombs.
how do you want
Okay.
to?
No bombs in DC. Absolutely not. Not a good idea.
Okay, I must have misheard you there.
Yeah. Say it louder. Yeah. Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, anyhow, I say all that to say, when it comes to the National Guard being deployed to DC, I just don't care. Everyone who the place exists to service the federal government, and everyone who works there exists to service the people who are servicing the federal government and servicing themselves at the same time in different ways. And I don't care what happens in that city at all.
And they're all Capitol people from Hunger Games.
Yeah, I don't consider them as part of America. Even I don't. That's just not how I look at that city. And maybe that's wrong. Could be wrong. I don't think it's wrong. I don't consider them as part of America, and so I don't really care.
It's not even a state.
It's not.
Yeah.
For a reason. I guess I'm correct when I don't consider them as part of America. They're just the terrible, evil city that tries to control our lives and steals our money and puts us in a cage.
And, robs you.
And so all that being said, if this were to happen, say in a other American city somewhere else, and Trump sent in the National Guard just because he thought the crime rate was too high randomly, I was going to send them in, then I would not like that. And I would hope. I used to think that Republicans also wouldn't like that, but I don't think that's true anymore. I think Republicans will literally be fine with anything that Trump does as long as it's Trump that's doing it.
Well, Nate, I mean, they're ushering in the Handmaid's Tale. Okay?
Yeah.
You're going to need martial law in every state. You're going to need the National Guard. How else do you expect us to hold the women down?
Yes.
You know?
I hadn't thought about it that way. Yeah, but I guess
that's Trump's agenda. So
I truly believe that a large majority of Republicans would be fine if Trump declared martial law, put people in FEMA camps and did whatever. If he was like, oh yeah, but we're going to bring the crime rate down by 8%, I think they'd be fine with it. So anyhow, I don't know how we got onto that.
the war, we were talking about wars.
War. You mentioned war in the street.
The war on, DC.
Yeah. On the way home from the LP convention, I bought the movie Civil War and watched it because I wanted to see fighting in the streets of that city so bad. Like I paid $25 on Apple because the movie came out like a day before that.
You were watching while you were driving.
So I was driving back at like 1 a.m. I just found out that Chase was the nominee, and I bought the movie Civil War, and I just watched like people attacking the city.
That's great.
What were we talking about? Let me see
War.
here. Yeah, so,
Venezuela. So U.S. warships are going to sail off Venezuela as tensions soar between Trump and Maduro regime over cartel accusations. I believe I saw 4,000 troops among the boats.
Is that how many? That's a lot.
I think so.
Yeah, I guess on those shore they got some people on those ships. Let me see.
4,000 American folks
cartels
going down to Venezuela.
Here's Caroline Levitt talking about this.
U.S.
Oh my God, that's too loud.
ships that are being sent to Venezuela, and there's 4,000 Marines on board. Are you looking at possibility of boots on the ground there? What I will say with respect to Venezuela, President Trump has been very clear and consistent. He's prepared to use every element of American power to stop drugs from flooding into our country and to bring those responsible to justice. The Maduro regime is not the legitimate government of Venezuela. It is a narco-terror cartel. In Maduro, it is the view of this administration, is not a legitimate president. He is a fugitive head of this cartel who has been indicted in the United States for trafficking drugs into the country. And with that, I will leave you all, and we will see you.
Don't even recognize him as a dictator.
He is illegitimate. Of course, this person says the only reason Trump is sending warships to Venezuela is because Maduro has openly criticized Netanyahu and Jewish power. Everyone's got to turn everything to the Jews. And listen, Israel's. I'm not a big fan of the country of Israel, but my God, it must be It must be damaging to your soul to literally just walk around determining whether or not Jews did that. Like, God, these cameras suck. I bet must have been the Jews working there in a factory. Or, oh, no, they don't work in the factory. They own the company, and that's what's going on. I just, maybe I'm naive when it comes to this whole thing, but I just can't do it. I just don't do it. The deployment of U.S. destroyers and personnel comes as Mr. Trump pushes for using the U.S. military to thwart cartels he blames for the flow of fentanyl and other illicit drugs into American communities and for perpetuating violence in some U.S. cities. I don't like cartels. I'm not a fan of them. Not a big fan of cartels. I think they need to be arrested and deported, and that's what I think. That's what I think needs to happen.
I think you could probably get rid of a lot of cartels if drugs weren't so illegal.
Yeah, we could do that.
Probably wouldn't have roving bands of violent people trying to protect what? Oh, a lot of money.
Yeah,
that they make on the black market.
You set up a black market for drugs, and these are the people that run the black market for drugs. This is a product that people want, and this is what's going to happen. It's a trade-off. There are no solutions, only trade-offs. And the trade-off for the war on drugs is that you get a war on drugs still, and maybe an actual war.
Yeah.
So that's what you got there.
I find it interesting that they don't recognize Maduro. I wonder what's going to happen there. Now, we all know Maduro did rig the election.
Well, sure. I mean,
we saw that clear as day.
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
By the way, this is what always happens in socialist regimes. Okay? It's like you create the power structure where government controls everything, and eventually, and like, look, Hugo Chavez wasn't great either.
Hugo Chavez.
But Maduro's much worse. And you create the power structure where they control everything, and then the people that are much worse come and take over. And then, now, of course, it's America's fault for imposing sanctions and all these terrible things that they can't get ahead. But this is what always happens.
Because as every socialist argues, socialism cannot survive without capitalist products.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how they all say it.
They say it in different words, but,
It's the argument they always make. For sure.
I just wonder what's going to happen with four ships, I think.
There's four,
with 4,000 Marines on board.
4 destroyers, I believe.
It's kind of interesting when you send, 4,000 Marines along with the sailors. I find that to be interesting. Are they going to make landfall? Are they going to have boots on the ground?
Well, not initially, but I always look at these people as bait. Unfortunately, and I don't want them to be bait, okay? But I always look at them as bait. And so
somebody's going to throw a firecracker.
Someone's going to do something. They're going to shoot a bottle rocket out there.
Roman candle.
Something like that. And then they're like, well, we just got attacked, so we're not going to go in like with a war, but we do need to hit those people right there. Because one of their guys swam by and he cast a line towards our boat. And we took it as a threat. And so...
And that's how the war in Venezuela will happen. And then somehow we're going to get a bunch of oil reserves.
Oh, that's the problem. They got Venezuela went and got themselves too much oil. That's the problem. Okay, so the next story here is I can tell even more that we're not going to get through the main topic today. But the next story is Rand Paul commenting on this. The Daily Caller posted out, breaking. Senior American intelligence officials broke protocol to conceal classified intelligence that COVID-19 came from a lab from the president. They concealed this from the president and the public, granting Fauci's inner circle extraordinary influence while silencing their own spy scientists. We got spy scientists.
Wow.
Out there. Yeah.
How about that?
Each lab, we got a couple spies out there. Huh. So Rand Paul...
I like how they hid it from the president because you know who was president during the time?
Trump. Yeah.
So
Rand Paul said, I've already refiled my criminal referral of Dr. Fauci to President Trump's DOJ for lying to Congress. This is yet another reason he should be behind bars. And of course, as we know, like on the last day or two of Biden's presidency, Fauci is one of the people who received a pardon back just past the time that they know for sure he was committing crimes. That's roughly the time period that they gave him a pardon for. So in this story here, senior American intelligence officials concealed classified intelligence that COVID-19 came from a lab.
By the way, why are we classifying intelligence about COVID-19, about a disease?
Yeah, I don't know.
Why would there be any sort of classified intelligence about, I don't know, trying to help humans not die of a disease?
Maybe to conceal your sources, like the fact that you have spies in people's labs. I don't know. I'm just playing devil's advocate, and I mean the word devil.
You're a statist.
Evidence pointing to a lab leak included signals intelligence, or SIGINT, collected from Chinese Communist Party leaders. Okay, so they have spies around CCP leaders. Okay, of course they do. In 2019,
signals intelligence also means human intelligence.
Yeah. Oh, that's human. So SIGINT, that's going to be intercepted, probably transmission, stuff like that.
I mix it up.
Yeah. Human SIGINT. Leaders in 2019 between Beijing and Wuhan revealing a major emergency. One former official told the DCNF an increasingly political deep state concealed it from Donald Trump during the first 2 months of the pandemic, deflecting blame from China as political rival Joe Biden sought to lay responsibility for the pandemic squarely at Trump's feet. And now it's
always blaming the other.
Yeah, they
just
sort
like
of,
every single one of Trump's truths always talks about the incompetent, grossly terrible, do nothing Joe Biden.
You got to give people someone to be mad at. You got to give people a villain. There is a villain in this story. Higher ups continue to dismiss evidence for a lab leak as the fodder for a conspiracy theory and Trump's hardline stance against China, deceiving millions of Americans about a disease that upended their lives and felled loved ones. Spy scientists at 4 intelligence agencies and 4 other government officials spoke to the DCNF on condition of anonymity to reveal previously unreported details about censored intelligence under 2 presidential administrations. The TLDR on this, just so you guys know, is we got spy scientists. They knew that this was clearly a lab leak. They knew that we were working on this before it leaked from the lab. And they tried to tell people in the government that this is what happened. And they were silenced because Fauci was going with this whole natural origins. They had that paper, I think it was called Proximal Origins or whatever the thing was.
Came from a bat.
That came out. Yeah, it was a bat.
In the wet market.
Mm-hmm. That was the whole thing. Now,
get this, by the way. Spy scientists also decoded engineering in the COVID-19 genome. Clues Chinese authorities were powerless to hide. Two spy scientists said, but this evidence was conspicuously omitted from public record reports released by the IC under then President Biden, as senior officials instead elevated the analysis of Fauci's inner circle, who argued the virus was assuredly natural. The omission prompted a formal complaint from one agency. One spy scientist said, I just like spy science.
Can we just say scientist?
Scientist.
That's so much faster.
I like it.
Scientist.
I like it. I didn't know we had, 007 in the lab.
So we've got, I guess we got
you get a new guy and you're like, James, you look a little too fit to be a scientist. Are you sure you're supposed to be here? Oh yeah. I'm supposed to be here. Did you bring a gun to the lab, James? Supposed to have firearms, and we're working on COVID here.
Boss comes in the door. James like, oh, sorry. If you're not watching the video, you don't know what we just did there. So,
PhD born. That's right, baby. There we go.
I did want to point out that the Daily Caller is they're making the case that this was to help Joe Biden win the election because Joe Biden was trying to blame everything on Trump, and I guess, regardless of where it came from, what they were saying about Trump was that he wasn't doing enough to try and stop it, And so I don't think where it came from really mattered in that part of the theory. Here's why where it came from mattered. Because we made the virus. Okay? That's why the fact that it leaked from a lab where Eco Health Alliance, which had been funded by NIH,
which, by the way, Trump dropped the regulations.
Yeah,
for them to be able to do it.
Man, I don't have that paper pulled up. We're talking about COVID right now. I don't have it on me.
By the way, Trump deregulated that, which we're against regulations.
Now we don't like regulations.
So,
but the regulation was against the government doing dangerous things.
Yes,
just to be clear. That was like a government regulation on the government.
Yes. And that's the other thing, is that we should be able to hold people responsible whose fault it is. Like if you play dangerous games, you should be held responsible for those dangerous games. And I just think that's a valid argument.
People who think Charlie's just making stuff up right now, I want to show you. I knew I'd have it somewhere close. There it is.
Bring it on over.
That right there. Finally, the opportunity to talk about, somehow we did so many episodes during COVID, and this article never. Because the article is from 2017. That's the problem. Yeah, it didn't come out then. So this article from CNN is called "Why the Government is Creating Lethal Viruses," and this is from December 19th of 2017.
Just 2 years.
So
before the COVID leak.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, actually. Why the government is creating lethal viruses. The U.S. government on Tuesday lifted a ban on making lethal viruses, saying the research is necessary to develop strategies and effective countermeasures against rapidly evolving pathogens that pose a threat to public health.
No, which is wild because the pathogens don't exist. It's like,
they created it.
We need to genetically modify and engineer pathogens so that then we can come up with solutions to those pathogens that didn't exist, but we created them. That's insane. That is insane. It's like, and they might do this actually, but it's like, imagine like we're just going to create new cancers so that we can come up with
cures for that cancer,
for those cancers.
Yeah.
And then we just start injecting people with that cancer. Like, oh, you got this new form of cancer. Well, where did it come from? It's natural.
Well, so
even though they know it was created, it was fake.
The other wild thing about this is that they ended up using mRNA to make the vaccine, which they didn't. So the way they used to do it, just because we spent a lot of time talking about this stuff, and to be fair, it's been a little bit since we talked about it. But the way that they used to do it was they would get this virus, and then the problem is, okay, we got a vaccine for this right here, but what happens when it evolves to something else? Just a little bit. What happens when it changes just a little bit, and then our vaccine's not working anymore? And so what they do is they try to encourage it, to sort of evolve into whatever the next thing is going to be. And then we can have a virus ready for that. And so when it happens naturally in the world, which is something that does happen, we'll already have the potential vaccine for this thing that we studied, this virus. We know that it was going to move in one of these directions, and so we let it move in these directions, and we made vaccines for each one of those so we'd be ready when this happened naturally in the world, okay? And when you say it that way, it's not the craziest thing you ever heard in your whole life, okay? The problem here, that's not really what they did. They were like, let's chemically, genetically change this thing and make it super dangerous.
Let's engineer it.
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. And by the way, we're not even doing it for the reasons that we used to. We used to have to do that because it took all this time to make the vaccines and do all that. Well, we're going to use mRNA technology. mRNA is just a blank Google form that we're just going to type in the genetic sequence, and it's going to say, all right, well, it's like when you get different paint colors at Home Depot and they type in the numbers down there and like, well, this is the amount of ounces of all these things that go in to make that color. And that's what they did for mRNA. That's why it took them a weekend to make the vaccine.
I think, interestingly enough, it's just more proof that we live in a simulation.
Yeah.
You're just talking simulation talk.
That's all it is.
You go to Home Depot, plug in your paint color number. You go to your mRNA vaccine, you just plug in your genome sequence. And there you go. It pops it out for you. So,
one thing I'm realizing is that I've forgotten basically all the terminology from the COVID pandemic. Like, I forgot about all that stuff. But I do remember how things worked. Okay. And so anyhow, this idea that they needed to make these lethal viruses, and that included COVID as one of them, when they were going to use this mRNA thing, which has existed for like 20 years now at this point.
40.
They had
like the 80s.
It's a long time, I guess. They haven't been using it for vaccines clearly. But okay, anyhow, we got through one paragraph.
Oh,
we were reading this article.
There's more.
We were reading this article from 2017.
Oh, that's all we needed.
Dr. Francis Collins, director of the NIH, made the announcement in which he outlined a new framework for the controversial research. The work with 3 viruses can now go forward, but only if a scientific review panel determines that the benefits outweigh the risks. I want you to put yourself in the mindset that you've gone back to the year 2017, the end of the year 2017, and you know what's about to happen at the beginning of the year 2020. And now you're reading papers, articles from that time period. Quote, "We have a responsibility to ensure that research with infectious agents is conducted responsibly and that we consider the potential biosafety and biosecurity risks associated with such research," Francis Collins said in the statement. The decision brings an end to a 3-year moratorium on research involving the influenza virus, severe acute respiratory syndrome, or SARS, and Middle East Respiratory Syndrome, or MERS, the 3 viruses that they ended the moratorium on doing dangerous research on were the flu, SARS, and MERS. It's kind of weird. Mm-hmm. Just saying, kind of weird.
What is COVID? It's a SARS.
It's a
SARS virus.
It's literally SARS-CoV-2.
Yes.
It's part of the name on it. I saw it in a book. Critics say the research could... you get chills when you read this kind of stuff. Critics say the research could unleash a new germ that threatens millions if it is not properly stored or if it escapes from a lab.
They spelled it right there in English for us. Now, the government paused the research in 2014 to review the practices in handling and storing infectious agents. At the time, Collins said that biosafety and biosecurity risks needed to be understood better. So they already had some issues where some of these lab leaks were taking place. Mm-hmm. And so they paused it. Of course, the research was going on during Obama. They paused it during Obama, saying, okay, there's some issues happening. We kind of need to look at and revamp our security measures. And then after 3 years, they decided to take it off. Now, I don't know how much influence Trump had on this. But this happened during his administration.
It did.
Okay.
And so therefore, Fauci lying about this was actually doing Trump a favor too.
Originally, it was still Trump. Trump still had a full year almost of presidency when COVID hit the United States.
And it was his administration that ended the moratorium on researching those 3 viruses that eventually, I don't know if MERS had anything to do with COVID.
No, it was SARS.
So it's SARS, and people say it's like the flu, the dangerous flu. And so we got COVID.
Yeah.
And it's
my thing is the way that they were, it's so interesting how what they were testing, modifying that led to COVID being so spreadable was the spike protein, modifying it in a way that would make it more contagious. Mm-hmm. And then you're telling me it accidentally got out?
Well, they modified it in a way that wouldn't have happened in nature.
Right.
Ever, really. Mm-hmm. And
you read from the previous article that it was engineered in a way that it couldn't be hidden.
Mm-hmm. Because they could see, clearly this was engineered.
Yes.
You can't hide the fact that this was engineered, which is what people said. They got banned for talking about it. They got censored for talking about it. And then, thank God, Jon Stewart went on Stephen Colbert and made a joke. And then all of a sudden, we were able to talk about the fact that it clearly came from a lab. But as this whole thing...
And, well, hang on, let me finish that. And now, you can't afford your groceries.
There you go.
I mean, there's a lot of things leading up to not being able to afford your groceries. Yes. But I just want to talk about specifically what happened to the economy because of COVID. Mm-hmm. Because of a literal, human, genetically modified virus that was, I think, purposely leaked from a lab, created tyranny all over the world. Mm-hmm. Literal tyranny.
You think it was purposefully leaked?
You saw almost Nazi level neighbors telling on neighbors for not wearing a mask or not getting vaxxed or whatever, going outside when you weren't supposed to go outside. And all of that derived from engineering that should have never taken place to begin with.
That's true.
And then on top of that, no one is held responsible for that.
No.
And by the way,
no one has been.
It wasn't as dangerous as they said it was, but also it still led to millions of deaths. Like millions of people died at the hands of the people who were playing with fire.
Yeah.
It's no different than just going around setting those people's houses on fire.
For what seems to be just for fun in this scenario, because like I said, the reason they would spin up these viruses to create vaccines for them is because it's something that would have eventually happened naturally. And so they wanted to be ready. They did something that would not have eventually happened naturally.
Ever.
And they had a technology that any virus, they can just plug it in to the mRNA Google form and it was going to spit out the vaccine. And so it was like, what were they doing other than creating the bioweapon? That's all they were doing, was just creating the bioweapon. So
that's a great meme.
I don't know if we can put this on YouTube.
The meme says, yeah, but your scientists were so preoccupied with whether or not they could, that they didn't stop to think that they should.
Great Jurassic Park moment.
Yes.
When as a kid, I didn't realize how smart that movie was. It's a great movie. It still holds up. I love that one. Okay. What were we talking about? So the reason they were actually hiding.
Was that a COVID breath?
Yes. It was a big COVID breath. The reason they were actually.
You lost some of your hair.
I did.
Which is a crime.
I lost about 25% of my hair.
That's a crime.
I got it back, but I paid a lot of companies a bunch of money to get it back.
Maybe they were in on it.
Yeah, that was the hair companies. That's what it was. Yeah. Okay.
God, remember losing your taste? That was weird.
It was wild. Yeah. Yeah. Lacey just had it like a couple months ago.
That's so weird.
Okay.
Why does it seem like yesterday and so long ago at the same time?
It was years. It was years ago. And also it was, in the grand scheme of life, it was yesterday.
And what's her name? Taylor Lorenz is still wearing a mask to this day.
Okay. So the reason that they hid where it came from, or they attempted to hide where it came from, is because they don't want to get in trouble for it.
Yeah.
And so they said this happened naturally, and they censored everyone who tried to tell people that it did not happen naturally, including, I didn't have that problem before COVID, including...
It's a COVID lisp.
People in the intelligence community, our great scientists that we had out there. Trust the scientist, okay?
Yeah. That's right.
We've got, the next topic.
And by the way, I just want to say, by the way, almost all of this is just going to fly under the radar.
Oh yeah, no one's going to get in trouble for this, man.
It's Fugazi. It's fairy dust. As long as you work in the top echelons of government, you basically can just do whatever you want. You can do what you like. Do you think Fauci's going to prison for this? No. You think there are going to be any real consequences for the people who perpetrated this entire thing? No. And not only that, they knew what they were doing was wrong because they lied about it multiple times. In fact, I remember multiple people talking about how Fauci was slamming Rand Paul, in these debates, these heated debates. And I remember saying at the time, when you can tell someone's lying is by how upset they get when you're questioning them. And that was Fauci and Rand Paul. That was those fiery moments in Congress during those interviews.
Yeah, Rand Paul stayed pretty calm.
Yeah, and Fauci was lying. We know that for sure now. And it's there's no... All this information comes out later, and it's most people are just going to... You think the corporate media is going to talk about this, really? You think this is headline news? No, they're still talking about Trump being Putin's puppet. They're still talking about something else fake to cover up what's real. And the problem is that when people don't have consequences from things like this, they're just able to do it again and get away with it and keep getting away with it. And nothing's ever going to happen. It's
I think
it's demonic.
Yeah. I think the problem now we really have is, and maybe Biden or Biden's auto pen did the government a favor by pardoning Fauci, because we know people really never get held accountable for anything. And so by giving Fauci a pardon, now we have an out where it's like, oh, we would have put Fauci in prison if it weren't for that darn auto pen, and so now that might be the case. And Rand Paul's making the criminal referrals, and Trump's DOJ is going to be more than happy to talk about how he should go to prison. And maybe we will have this fight over whether or not you can pardon someone for unspecified crimes for a specific period of time and how ridiculous that is. I would be fine with that somehow getting overturned by the Supreme Court. I don't know how it would. I really don't know. Like, there's really no precedent for this, for Hunter and all these other people getting pardoned for unlisted crimes. Like, if we ever find out anything that you did between these periods of time, you can't be held accountable for it.
Yeah. And
that is a recipe for a lot of bad stuff. I mean, you realize at the end of Trump's term, the whole administration, they can do whatever they want. I want any Democrat who stumbled accidentally upon this part of the show, they can do whatever they want during this time,
and then just pardon everybody.
And then they're just going to
in the administration.
They're just going to pardon the entire administration at the end of the term.
4 years, because
we know how much lawfare Trump dealt with at the end of his last term during those 4 years, and I do believe there's a lot of lawfare that he dealt with. And then by Biden doing these crazy pardons, like, that actually gives Trump what they call carte blanche to do anything that he wants over the next 4 years, and then just pardon everyone in his administration afterwards. And
I like how you had carte blanche.
Carte blanche. Carte blanche.
You're working on your Latin, I see.
Yeah. I felt like those were really lispy words, so I wanted to get away from the microphone when I said them. It's like, I said it, but you didn't hear me enunciate it fully. And so...
Yeah, I think you have an extra de-esser on there, don't you?
I got some de-essing going on.
Good. What's next?
I don't know. We're 48 minutes right now.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that?
We didn't get to the main topic.
What a show.
We didn't get to the actual main topic.
You titled this something about the CDC. Well, I mean, I do see how you laid this show out. It was nice to ramp up.
Yeah. Well, so we spent a lot of time on the foreign policy stuff, which I honestly planned on blowing through in about 2 minutes, but there were a lot of good jokes to be made about all that stuff. So, I mean, you got to do what you got to do. And then, I didn't know we'd spend that much. I didn't know we were going to pull up that article from 2017. And I wanted to lay out the conspiracies that took place during COVID and get that fresh in your mind before we talked about the American Academy of Pediatrics still breaking with the CDC and saying that your 6-month-old has to get some COVID shots or they're going to die. And we didn't... There's a specific phrasing that they use.
All the evidence shows that COVID is literally harmless to kids.
Now, so statistically, and it's crazy. I could play this video. It's a 4-minute video, and that would pretty much sum up.
Yeah, let's do that.
We could cut in a little bit and not have to go through all the studies and stuff. But I could play the video and we can respond to that.
Yeah, people just like the high level stuff anyway.
Yeah, we'll do we won't bore you with...
May, Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. announced the CDC would no longer be recommending the COVID shot for healthy children. But yesterday, the AAP issued contrary guidance, saying all children under the age of 2 should receive a COVID shot to protect from severe illness. It also called on insurers to continue covering the shots for that age group. For context, we're joined now by Dr. Paul Offit, pediatrician and director of the Vaccine Education Center at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Dr. Offit, thank you for joining the program. So this new AAP recommendation is based on the conclusion that children under 23 months old are at the highest risk of severe COVID. But isn't it still relatively rare among children? Do the numbers justify, you think, vaccinating all children under 2?
Well, first off, good on her for even saying those words. This is PBS here. She must be still trying to keep her job at the moment by asking a question like
Doesn't
that.
want to be defunded by the Trump administration.
But isn't it rare, that kids have any issues with COVID whatsoever? Well, yes, in fact, it is.
Wait, so there was a presentation made by Fiona Havers of the CDC.
Okay. Just first off, he did not respond and say, yes, it is extremely rare for any kids to get even sick and symptoms from COVID, let alone go to the hospital, and even more letting alone of them dying in the hospital.
Yeah.
But he just says, let's talk about this study from the CDC instead.
Wait, so there was a presentation made by Fiona Havers of the CDC in April of this year, looking at what has been the impact of COVID on children in the previous year. And what she found was that thousands of children were hospitalized. Of those who were hospitalized, about 1 in 5 were admitted to the intensive care unit. Virtually all were unvaccinated. Half were previously healthy, and 152 children died. Most were less than 4 years of age.
So you heard the stuff that he just said. Now, I pulled up all the studies and stuff, and pulled up CDC study. And guess what is one thing that study that he is talking about, someone else talking about, does not differentiate between with these kids, whether or not they were hospitalized with COVID or from COVID. And so when he says there's been thousands of children admitted into the hospitals with COVID, he literally means with COVID, meaning that they took a COVID positive test at some point in time and before they were hospitalized or while they were in the hospital. They might have got it while they were in the hospital. And so they became, as we saw.
By the way, you got to cut that number in half because only half of them were otherwise healthy previously.
Yes.
So only half of the thousands were completely healthy before COVID.
And only 43% of those, because I did pull up these numbers, only 43% of those were actually hospitalized because of COVID symptoms. So you got to half it, and then you're going to half it again.
And then of those, only 152 died, which is sad. Children dying.
The 152 includes kids who also just happened to have COVID while they were in the hospital.
And a hole in their heart.
He did not say that they died from COVID. They tested positive for it at some point in time. So even when he says 152 kids, that's not the number of kids that died from COVID in the study that he's citing. So that we're doing the same thing again. The same thing that we did during the pandemic right now is we're just saying these numbers, and we're saying thousands of kids. The AAP put out this thing and said, look, 11,500 kids were hospitalized over the last year or whatever with COVID. And they do not tell you that does not mean that that's why they were in the hospital. It just means they might have had it, might have tested positive for it. So anyhow, there we go. There's that part. Here's a little bit more.
And 152 children died. Most were less than 4 years of age. So I think the impact of this virus in that age group still warrants getting a vaccine if you've never had one.
The CDC, as you know, under Secretary Kennedy, who is an overall vaccine skeptic, has reached a totally different conclusion than the AAP.
Last year, the Biden administration urged healthy children to get yet another COVID shot despite the lack of any clinical data to support the repeat booster strategy in children.
That ends today. It's common sense and it's good science.
There's no evidence healthy kids need it today, and most countries have stopped recommending it for children.
The health secretary has been accused by many, including you in the past, of spreading misinformation. But the AAP is also coming under scrutiny. Kennedy and others accuse the organization of getting funding from big pharma. Who are Americans supposed to trust?
Trust the American Academy of Pediatrics, because it's the American Academy of Pediatrics that's following the science. RFK Jr. doesn't have those data. Because he doesn't have data, what he does is he chooses to lean on conspiracy theories, because that's what he always does. He believes everybody is in the pocket of big pharma, that whether it's journals, medical journals, or whether it's doctors or scientists or healthcare agencies or public health officials, everybody is in the pocket of industry except him. Who should you trust? You should trust the American Academy of Pediatrics. I think what Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has done to the CDC and has done to the Advisory Committee of Immunization Practices, which advises the CDC, has been tragic. And as a consequence, most medical and scientific institutions now don't trust the Advisory Committee for Immunization Practices anymore. And they certainly don't trust Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is a 20-year anti-vaccine activist, science denialist, and conspiracy theorist.
Didn't answer the question at all.
President, upon announcing these guidelines,
So
didn't talk about whether or not they actually get funding from the big pharma, which they do.
they do. I pulled all that up too.
Yeah, didn't answer any of those questions. Just RFK Jr. is a big conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. So about 35% of the AAP's funding comes from what they call contracts and grants. So that is a mix of corporations and government funding from grants that they get. And so the 35% there, and around 60% comes from like their dues or whatever that physicians pay them, and who also, could have some influence from some of these pharmaceutical companies to, could be physicians groups that are paying these massive dues, to the AAP.
And they do get incentivized when they give vaccines.
And so there are companies like Pfizer and Merck and, a bunch of these companies you've heard of before that do give
Moderna,
the American Academy of Pediatrics money every single year, and as part of their budget, their operating budget, and it's how they pay for their lavish lifestyle, I'm sure, that they lead over there at the AAP. And so here's a little bit more before we get out of here.
Said she wanted to provide clear and confident guidance on this. It's pretty black and white. Again, recommendation for all children under 2 to get the COVID vaccine. Do you think that sort of lack of nuance among health authorities can be problematic? Certainly during the height of the pandemic, that seemed to backfire. I mean, given the landscape of some mistrust, even of scientific expertise.
I think that what we found is that the virus still circulates. SARS-CoV-2 virus still circulates. It's going to be circulating for years, if not decades, if not centuries. You know that children by 6 months of age will be fully susceptible to this virus. You know that over the past year, thousands of children were hospitalized and more than 150 died. I don't think this is an example where we need nuance. This is an example where we need a clear, firm recommendation. And I think what the American Academy of Pediatrics has done has given us that recommendation.
All right. So there's that. That's a good screenshot right there. It's a pretty good one. There's that. There's that video. So just so everyone knows, we're not going to go through all this stuff. But
who was that doctor again? What was his name? Paul
Offit.
Offit.
Dr. Paul Offit. And he runs a vaccine education center. I don't remember what it's called. Might be called that.
Yeah.
And so he has no incentives either.
By the way, it's people don't trust the CDC because of RFK Jr. They don't trust the CDC because whenever the pandemic started, they told you to put bandanas around your face or sweatshirts.
A lot of people, yeah,
and the institutions have done this to themselves, and so I don't know. I don't want to hear them cry about it.
Yeah,
you should have told the truth from the get-go about everything.
And actually, once again,
and you didn't.
That reporter from PBS did a good job again there at the end of that. At the Steph Sy, S-Y there, by asking, there's no nuance. This is black and white. There's no nuance from the community on this. Like, shouldn't there be, isn't that what led to all the skepticism during the pandemic? Shouldn't we be careful just saying that every kid under the age of 2 has to get this vaccine? That was a surprising question once again from PBS.
And Kevin's saying, he said that, of course, that was the wreck. It was a new disease. Nobody knew what to do. I'm pretty sure the CDC knew not to put a bandana around your face. And the reason I say that is because they were panicking because they were running out of PPE.
Yeah.
They knew the proper protocol at that time. When they released that recommendation was for healthcare professionals and people to have proper personal protective equipment. And even at that time, they knew that they need at least N95 masks to stop the spread. because they knew at that time that the virus was small enough to pass through anything else. And so but the problem is they were running out of equipment. And so then they said, oh, it's fine. And at the time I was married to a nurse who obviously was getting this information on a daily basis. And when that came out, you're just like, what the hell? Like, do these institutions even care about the safety of public health workers? Like people who are actually serving the community of this disease we don't know much about, but we at least know that it's small enough to pass through normal PPE and we have to have at least N95 protection.
I think
that's why it all went wrong.
I think for maybe some healthcare workers, I will say, like, probably you go outside of healthcare workers' fear. No one know that they recommended bandanas for nurses. And so I'd say what really got people is just the constant do this one day, don't do that the next day. Masks are important, masks are not important.
Mm-hmm.
And then with the vaccine,
can't go outside. Outside's the best place.
And when it comes to the vaccine, like, there's no such thing as a breakthrough transmission or breakthrough infection or anything. Like, you're going to take it, everything's going to be fine. And then, of course, people are still getting COVID. People get upset when you say this. It does seem like it decreased the likelihood that you would die from COVID if you got COVID after you've been vaccinated. I still send me the data that says that's not the case. I have not read a single study, including the 4 studies I read. I'm telling you, I read like 90 pages of studies this morning. That's why I looked up and I was like, holy crap, it's noon. Well, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Read 90 pages of studies this morning, and I have not seen a single study that showed that getting vaccinated did not increase your chances of surviving COVID.
Did not increase your chances?
Getting vaccinated didn't, I don't know how I just said that. Basically, you had a better chance of surviving if you've been vaccinated. Less chance of getting severe COVID if you've been vaccinated.
Yes.
That seems to be the case. Now, if there is a conflicting study, send it to me. I'm not married to that opinion. I don't care. I'd love to be wrong. Yeah. Send it over.
I said that on the show years ago.
Yeah, I think that definitely seems to be the case. But yeah, I think all the conflicting information.
But you also have to take into
getting,
consideration what are the risks of being vaccinated.
Yeah, that's a thing too.
So you may prevent yourself from dying from a certain disease, but are you going to introduce other things that we don't know about?
If I could sum up, just because we don't have time for me to go through the 30 slides of data that I brought in today, what I for sure found out is that as far as a kid getting COVID and then being hospitalized and then dying from it, extremely low likelihood of that happening. We all know this already. We all already know that this is the case. Very, very low likelihood that they would be hospitalized. Even way lower likelihood that they would die in that hospitalization.
Much more likely to die in a car accident.
Much more likely. If you're taking your kid in the car to go see a loved one that's at the hospital, it's way more likely you're going to die in a car wreck on the way there than your kid's going to get COVID and die from it because they weren't vaccinated, or if they are vaccinated. Way more things that happen to kids, like riding in cars, that kill them, like RSV and stuff like that. Kids get that. That's not good. It's not a good thing.
The flu's way worse.
The flu's worse still. Yeah. And the problem with the COVID vaccine is that we don't have long-term data on this vaccine. I guess it takes a lot of time to get long-term data. And I saw numbers like 80% of people got at least their first COVID shot, like adults. And it was like less than 50% of kids had gotten at least a COVID shot, at least one. And I think that's because parents, I didn't take it because I don't know the long-term data for myself. But if I had a kid, like, no way am I giving my kid this thing, like growing up with this crap.
Definitely didn't give my kid the shot. Then,
like, if it were something where they had a high chance of dying from it, like that's another thing, or a high chance of getting severely ill. But when it's such a low chance that something bad is going to happen, you got to take that into account.
We've said this so many times too, is like, if there was a high likelihood of dying, you wouldn't have to convince anyone to get the shot.
No, wouldn't have to say a word about
There'd
it.
be no convincing.
No.
The market would take care of itself.
You'd have to bring in the National Guard to keep people from storming the place.
From trying to steal
get
the
it.
vaccine.
Yeah. So
Exactly. It's I don't know. I think institutions need to go back to being truthful and not trying to sway any type of opinion one way or the other. I think there's been a lot of bias built into the institutions of trying to develop and push certain narratives. And I think that that's a very dangerous game that they shouldn't be playing because they're going to create their own downfall. And they need to the way you fix this is just start being truthful about everything. Mm-hmm. Come out. Whatever institution needs to come out and say, like, look, we lied about the origins of this virus. Here's the truth about where it is. We knew this back in the day. We didn't report on it because we feared, of what might happen. But we're going to get back to just telling people the truth. Mm-hmm. And that's how you fix the institutions. That's how you get the public to trust the CDC or the American Academy of Pediatrics or the American Heart Association or whatever. You have to stop the agendas and just tell people the truth, and then they'll trust you. Mm-hmm. Trust has to be built on truth.
even if the truth is bad.
Even if it's bad.
Yeah, that's even better, actually.
There's no way around it. It has to be built on truth. And that's all the time we have for today. So thank you all for joining and listening. Please share the show. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Go to GodHatesFeds.com and Fauci.com. GodHatesFeds.com. Get some merchandise. Click the button that says Join GML or visit joingml.com. You'll get the 30-minute pre-show we did today. You'll get perks like that if you go to joingml.com. Leave us a rating and review. I already said to do that. Visit the links in the show notes to support the sponsors that support this show. And if you do that, we'll be back again tomorrow. Hope you have a good day and a good morning. Liberty.
Threw off my timing.